Hello and welcome to another episode of Creatives Chat. Peter, who are we chatting with this week?
Ooh, Rusty, our guest is a conscious creator, independent artist, CEO of Emotion Entertainment, and an educator, intermingling spoken word, storytelling, esoteric essence, and lived experience. Our guest illustrates his external works via his art. We have Brian, aka BRY444N.
All right, let's roll the intro.
Streaming from Retro Earth Studio and brought to you by
wearehistorically.com, conscious human apparel, and
learn to play jazz piano like a pro, by a pro, with Jazz Piano Pro Essentials at jazzpianopro.com.
Join us as we chat about who knows what.
Oh, it's Mr. BRY444N himself. How's it going, Brian? How you been?
Good. Thank you for having me. Appreciate y'all.
Of course, man. I'm super stoked to have you on. It was an honor to have you perform at the Community Through Unity, and I was like, we have to chat with him on Creatives Chat. So it was meant to be.
My heart. Beautiful.
So I just want to dive right into it. You know, I think one of the things about the current era that we're living in is more and more people are really awakening to their inner truth. They're beginning the real path of inner looking and really determining who they are, what's real to them. And I think there's really no better place to look at how much that's kind of resonated with people than how you blew up on TikTok. Like,
yeah.
How did that start? Where did it come from? Because it's consistent. You got that fan base, man. It's dope.
That's love, man. I mean, honestly, and it's kind of funny how this will definitely tie into, you know, kind of even just this theme that we're talking about. So like at first the idea was like, you know, I was like, I want to put some singing covers on here. I want to put some poetry stuff on here. Cause, you know, originally, and I'll be honest, you know, a lot of it was ego, you know, so at first I'm like, what is the fastest way to really use this to, you know, and at this time I wasn't thinking like this, but of course at this old timeline, the original thought process was like, oh, what is the best way to get the quickest validation I can from people I don't know, which is, oh, let me just put this stuff up there. I was like, oh, this will be dope, you know, and really just exerting a part of myself that, not that I don't identify with it now, but more so at that time, you know, it was definitely just a different headspace, you know. So what I found was that, you know, of course, when I was trying to do a lot of that and, hey, you know, like for this next song, whatever, you know, I try not to tell myself, I'm like, I don't think it was because the music was bad. I think it just was, you know, I think they were like, yeah, this is cool. But, you know, you could tell it was forced, you know what I'm saying? So when it came to this kind of content, honestly, a lot of it was truly just speaking from my heart, speaking my truth for a change, you know, and what it really came down to was saying, what would I want? You know, what would this body at this time want or need in that way? And honestly, at that time, I was going through a heavy period of an awakening and, you know, shadow work and a lot of those different things. And I truly just had to look at myself instead of thinking I was kind of this God complex ego. I had to just really look at myself as everybody else kind of walking around in this earth. And by doing that, I was like, well, if I'm going through this, somebody else has to feel this, you know what I mean? And when I started to just be authentic in myself and my journey and what I was going through, and honestly, just who I am, just being kind of a goofball on there, honestly, you know, I think other goofballs really started to resonate with that. We're like, hey, we feel that, you know what I mean? So I was one day, you know, I started making a series about the angel numbers. And, you know, what really took off, honestly, was I used to work at Lowe's. And when I was working at Lowe's, I mean, you know, shout out to Lowe's, shout out to the people at Lowe's, you know, but, you know, definitely, you know, it was just, I was very blessed to have that position, but definitely I could see the test that my angel set me up for, which was like, you know, how much of this ego that you're kind of picking up at this job, like how much of this are you going to run with, you know, and what I would do in between, like, you know, going to the back to find some bricks or something like that. Like in between that, I would make TikToks there because that's what I really wanted to do, was talk to the people and stuff and shine my light in that way. And I had made a series about 3-part series called like Things They Don't Tell You During a Spiritual Awakening. And one of them had went viral. And that's what really brought in one, like the following, but also two, like, I think that really showed me. I was like, oh, like this is where I'm supposed to be. You know what I mean? I was like,
Yeah.
this is my little lane right here. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, that's really what it was, you know, and then I just kept, you know, I think what it was because when I put that out, I mean, I think it did like 90,000 overnight. You know what I'm saying? It just went crazy. And when that happened, not to bring the number up more so just for like, hey, this is what it did, but more so it really unlocked in me. I think it gave me what like the universe will give you what you're looking for. You know, if you believe you deserve it, the universe will serve it. But it'll give you that. Right. You know, but it'll give you that in a way that is like, okay, now you're ready for it. You know, so it gave me not necessarily what I think I wanted, you know, from the ego standpoint of, oh, these are, you know, new fans or, you know, music listeners, but it gave me the community that I've always been looking for that allowed me to honestly just be organic, you know, and just be more authentic, get more comfortable with myself. And by seeing the number that, of course, is just a fake number, but by seeing that number, I was able to understand, oh, like this is, you know, I was like, oh, this is what I should be doing. You know what I mean? Not necessarily like, and not like I was basing it off of that, but I was like, this is what's working. You know what I mean? That's when I started to kind of click in that way. So yeah, man, that's where it all started, honestly. And then since then, man, just been, you know, and I see a lot of your videos too, you know, so I see those and I'm like, man, I need to get a tapestry. I'm like, man, I need to get a you know, a hairband or, you know, something. I'm like, you got the cleanest skin of all time too. I'm like, I need to get on that. And I'm like, that man right there, he know a thing or two about some avocado, you know, so yeah, man, but that's where it all started, bro, you know?
I appreciate it, man. But it's funny that you say that because like, it's there's nothing more true than when we actually start to tap into our authentic self.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that really does capture me about your music. When you think of like conscious artist, I think there's always such an alignment of just like kind of cheesy woke, but it's just one of those things just because of how a lot of people portray it because they are trying to force it.
Thanks.
But with yourself, it's just like you're literally just spitting truth. And that's the stuff that resonates in the heart. And that's why I find it funny how life will validate the lane that works for our heart. And that's the coolest thing is when you see like you naturally start to attract the community. It's just like you start seeing, I mean, you mentioned it briefly earlier where it's like you start seeing the angel numbers, the synchronicities, and that's just like, oh my gosh, like, wait, that's the move. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. Okay, cool.
Right. You know, it kind of chooses you in that way. You're like, all right, you know, so here we are, you know, and one 444 tattoo later, here we are, you know, so
444 tattoo. So was that the one that came up the most for you?
You know, honestly, what that truly was, so my life number is 7, but there was something about 4 that I had always just resonated with, and essentially, and I'm sure we'll like dive into this, but also to like bring it up now, what it was on that path to awakening. 444 was the one that had really just kind of resonated with me, very, you know, stuck out to me the most, and I think more so because of the kind of awakening I was having. I think that is why. You know, because I really was kind of like 444 is definitely also like transformation. And I think for what it was like specifically that I was going through at that time and the kind of transformation that was happening, I think that was the one that, you know, just really kind of sought me out, honestly. Ooh. But 7 is actually my life number. But the funny thing about that, just to kind of full circle it, is that I also see, you know, 333 a lot as well, too. And, you know, for me, other spiritual people do this as well. I don't know, maybe if you do this, but like I add and subtract the angelic numbers as well. So like if I had like 444, 333, that would also be like 111 for new birth, but also 777 for, you know, like essentially your manifestations are here, you know what I mean? So and then the 7 being the life number, you know what I mean? So it's kind of funny how it played out, but it definitely that, and then also the 4 I put it in a poem years ago, which is funny that I was talking like this but didn't maybe understand what I was saying then, or maybe I did and now it's all full circle, but
higher self coming through for a little bit.
You know that exactly, you know, because I had referenced essentially like my 4th chakra and then the 7th chakra. Well, I was referencing them in like a way of them being like kind of conjoined, or not conjoined, excuse me, at like a combat. Like my 4th chakra and my 7th chakra were you know, kind of always like fighting each other. So that 4-7 minus, you know, 4-7 being 3 and then that 3-4 being, you know, something about that was just always kind of there. But yeah, 444, man, it just stuck out and it looks like an A, and I put that in the name as well too. So
gotta rock
yeah,
it.
You know what I mean? So I'm like, at this point, you know, we're stuck with it, but you know.
That's great. Well, how did you even get into like numerology? I think that's one of those things where there's so many more people kind of tapping into the kind of like the esoteric, this ancient, really it's just ancient wisdom. And there's more and more people getting like notoriety for it. And I think that's for yourself. You stand out the most with that because it's just like you bring synchronicity to the forefront, numerology to the forefront. Yeah.
Truly appreciate that. No, and where that really came from for me was I want to say it's a photographic memory, but it's definitely like and then of course too, like, you know, I'm sure you'd resonate with this. So I believe source will speak to us all in different ways, but it'll speak to us in the language that we just naturally really understand. You know, we'll either, some people will, you know, see things, you know, are more you know, I think clairsentient in that way. Some people are more claircognizant in that way, you know, and I think really just kind of depends. I truly believe that you have all four, but I think some are more active than others, just depending maybe what your, you know, your journey's looking like or what you're supposed to do on your journey. And I believe that as, you know, whatever, you know, at least for my spirit, I think this body was supposed to always kind of be like a visionary. There was something about the vision or kind of seeing, at least in, you know, this experience that I've had, where that I've noticed, like I you know, I'm just always very aware. God always just had me you know, really always just kind of looking at license plates. I see numbers every time. I can't, you know, can't leave the house without, like, you know, what was that? You know what I mean? And that's just because it was something about the sight, the vision, you know, at least for me. So that's where that came from, which was once God had, you know, continued to make me, you know, kind of dangerously self-aware, I was so aware that I couldn't not be aware. And at that point, you know, I had seen them like a couple times, but then I could never not see them again. You know what I mean? And I think that was the, like, the numerology for me. It started, like, for me, I see the numbers as symbols, which is funny because I like am awful, or at least the school system would tell me that I was awful at math, but it was more so when it comes to doing this, man, you know what I'm saying, I'm you know, but you know, awesome. When it comes to some algebra, I'm like, ooh, get that out of here. But you know, so yeah, man, it was definitely all like a part of the path, I would say. But yeah, I just got lucky with it. Some people are, you know, hear or feel a little bit more than I do, but I think for me, it was always about the vision, always about kind of the sight or visualization in that way. I would see a lot of these in dreams as well too. So like for me, it was just something, it just had to do with vision in some way, at least for me. But that's just, you know, of course, my experience.
Ooh. But see, that's something that's fascinating right there, though, is that we all go on these journeys and everything unfolds uniquely for us right when we need it. And I'm very curious, like, when you started making that switch to being that authentic, just rawness of just like, I'm no sugarcoat and I'm just going to be me. What else started to open up in terms of like your music, in terms of the path that you were on? I mean, I know you briefly mentioned a little bit with TikTok, but like, when did this real integration with your truth connect fully with the music?
Appreciate that. Thank you. Basically what had happened with that, honestly, was, you know, and this would be the context that, like, now after this conversation, if you were to go back and kind of relook at some of these things, you'd probably be like, oh, wow, that makes sense now. But ultimately, I had a alter ego, but essentially just ego, or a shadow that really followed me my entire life, quite honestly. And it was called, or the name that I gave it was Emotion the Poet, you know, and the idea behind that essentially was, you know, that was truly just, the version of myself that was created by, you know, fear, very low vibrational activity, a world around me that did not want to necessarily see me survive or thrive, but really just a persona created out of a lot of generational things that, you know, unfortunately didn't or weren't going to serve future me in that way, you know. And at that time, I truly believe God had always had me aware of that. I could feel that was, you know, there was kind of something in the midst that was not necessarily right, kind of that outcast, outlier feeling. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, I lived as that for pretty much my whole life, honestly. You know, I mean, I think, you know, because I'm 24 now, and it truly was not until so when COVID happened in March, and then there was essentially I want to say it was maybe April or May, all the way up until about maybe even this summer, where things started to lighten up. But when COVID at first happened, I was living as that, you know, I was just a whole past life, but I was living as that every day of my life, essentially, you know. And Emotion the Poet was a character that I like to reference Avatar, the episode where the face stealer is there, and you know, truly was just wearing my face. And yeah, basically, I mean, as that, I was trying to do a lot of things that truly did not resonate with who I was. I was trying to make a lot of music and put myself in a lot of positions that were not authentic to me. I was trying to make a lot of club records, you know, and it's funny too, because, you know, keep it positive. I don't know how that would do in the club, but, you know, if you can imagine this, you know, trying to, you know, I'm in the, you know, but, you know, you got to start somewhere, you know what I mean? And a lot of that too was, you know, that of course gets even deeper, and we'll, I'm sure, come back to it. But ultimately, what had happened was that and ironically, I mean, it really took, shout out to my girl, but it really took her to be so invested in my life where she had actually seen both sides of the coin for her to, very similar to the movies where they call the demon by its name. And,
Ooh.
it essentially is recognized and then it goes back to where it's from. She had truly done that for me, which was looked me in my face and was like, that you're not emotion, but you're Brian, because at this time I was also, really just living as that, because I never liked who I was, what I'm saying? So I truly was just, I was like, this is the next best thing. It was a reality I continued to create every single day and live as, just lying to myself, telling myself and others around me the same stories over and over again to the point where I believe them as well as they believe them, because I was able to disassociate from this reality to create one that was more suitable for the life I was living. And then, of course, create that for others around me so they could, take part in it. But obviously that's not and was not, is not, I'm not going to say the right thing to do, but was not something that was going to serve who's having this conversation with you. You know what I mean? So ultimately,
Definitely.
through all of that, the awakening through that was what allowed me to really just kind of sit with myself and of course a lot of that a lot of the shadow work I'm talking about, and that was what really just allowed me to just be who I was, for a change. This is the first time, like I said, I'm 24 now, so this is the first time in my life that I think I actually felt alive. Like I was not just a bot in the system, but more so just I was like, oh, this is what my spirit is, it just is underneath this this black skin here, but there's a spirit in there, you know what I mean? And yeah, man. So that's that. All of that had to happen, which I was nervous at first, but now I'm incredibly grateful for it, because it had to happen to kind of allow me to tell a lot of the stories that I tell, because they're all real. You know what I mean? So it's like I said, even kind of back to the Slumflower series, I have a track called Voices. On there, I mention that's where I mention essentially kind of killing emotion, and that. So when I say that, that is what I'm talking about. My alter ego, emotion, a poet, and it's really one of those kind of like, if you knew at that time, you knew. And some people I don't think cannot see me as that, because they might not be at the level to also understand the transformation. But yeah, man, I mean, long tangent to say, I really had to, climb out of the depths of hell just to, try to make these positive tracks, but we're here, because somebody else needed them. That was me, but also somebody else needed them, so yeah, man, we're here.
That's powerful though, because I think the thing in terms of the Slumflower series too is it was the Welcome to Slumflower series, that it was just that aspect when it's that conversation with God, where it's just like, no, like you'll get through it. You're meant to get through it. I'm so curious, like in terms of this process of inner looking, I know a lot of people have negative connotations about, source, the creator, God, whatever it is people want to identify it as. They have really bad attachments to it just purely because, and identifications because of like their experiences in religion and things like that. But I think there's nothing more powerful than when you really come to have those deeper and higher conversations and understand that, like, no, there are, like, the universe is at play here. It's not just you, it's meant for you. It's not happening to you. And that's a huge thing to kind of overcome. So even just the courage of letting go of the old self, what pushed you through it? What was that kind of like extra, like, no, I like, because it's a courageous act. It's one of like intense curiosity that overcomes like the fear of change, that you more so are like, I'm tired of being the same. Like, what was that kind of inner force within yourself that was like, no, I know this is it. I know that's not it. Let's keep pushing.
Yeah, no, first, thank you so much for that acknowledgement, but also, just these questions are beautiful. For me, truly, honestly, and it's funny, I was just talking to my girl about this, but the only thing that has ever kept me going, that was keeping me going, and at that time, it was just source. It was my higher self. It was, essentially the visualization of what I knew that I was going to become, or I could evolve into. But of course, this part, because I believe, God will take you to, or source will take you to, different levels when you're ready for it, of course, and those different levels will have, of course, their own set of responsibilities that are just that much more dense. But where I was at, I could see that it was either I evolved or I repeated. But this time, if I was going to repeat, it wasn't, that was probably gonna be the last time, you know what I'm saying? So it really was knowing that I didn't really have a choice, because I knew that what it was that God was planning to do with this vessel was way bigger than anything that I could have ever imagined. It was, because it's way bigger than just even this, you know what I mean? And it was more so truly, I think, and I tell my girl all the time too, I know God had pulled out all of those things and all of those shadows when they were supposed to happen, because had they not, one, you know, would not even still be talking to you here, but two, it's like that it was just all part of, it was a puzzle piece that I've been looking for the longest time, you know. And I think it was something that God could see in me, in my spirit, which was like, oh, you know, your light is dimming to a point where it might not turn back on. Like you have to get these off you, you know what I mean? Like these chains are really like, because, you know, of course they were chains that I never, you know, that I didn't put on myself, but at the same time, you know, I was not in any way trying to take them off me. You know, I was very comfortable in the 3D existence. I was very, I enjoyed what I was doing in the 3D, you know, because I was, and who I was in the 3D was like a pioneer of it. You know, I was someone that at that time would have, you know, continued to stay in that if I didn't have a connection to source or anything higher. So yeah, that internal force truly was that God had, you know, and for me, like that is with the writing or, you know, the music and stuff, but like God truly was like, use this period to just write. And I was able to live in my writing for about, I went off the grid at the start of COVID. Back in, I want to say March, April, I went off the grid for about somewhere around like 6 to 7 months. And at that time, like a lot of, that's why in at the end of Welcome to Slumflower Series, I say like God told me if I wanted to heal, I had to write. And because I said that because at that time, I did not talk to anybody. It was off all social media, like literally just within my energy, recharging and just recalibrating my vibration. But I wrote to my girl every single day. They were called the Sunrise Sonnets, and I was writing essentially poetry or stories where I lived in those virtually every day. And that was the one thing that, even in that isolation, in that incredibly lonely and just dark period of solitude, that was the only thing that I had to keep me going, which was, you know, all right, I'm gonna wake up every day and I'm just gonna write something. You know, there'd be days that we wouldn't eat or wouldn't clean the house, or, you know, it was just an incredibly dark and just depressing place in that cave. But the only thing that I had was literally just pull out my phone and my notes and just, you know, if it was, I would tell her a story of something from 6 months ago. I'd tell her a story of last night. I would give her my perspective on, you know, literally it was just writing every single day. You know what I mean? And that was the one thing, excuse me, I stayed consistent with that. At that time, similar to the TikTok thing, I was like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. You know what I mean? Like, this is, God wants me to do something with this. You know what I mean? And I was able to heal through that. You know, and for me, that was huge at that time, of course, you know, by very similar to a diary or a journal entry, being able to literally just live outside of this physical experience in virtually like a tangible place and just, you know, literally just live in the words. That was honestly, that's what kept me going. So yeah, literally that whole time.
That's dope. And that's the coolest thing, is it's that action. It's I guess you would almost say it's the living meditation of just allowing things to decompress and let yourself like process things.
Facts.
And I think the coolest part about it too is, because I felt like there was a correlation with this, you know, and you talk about that kind of almost like your pilgrimage, you know, you're going into the cave.
Yeah.
Is that when voices in that type of just like the internal kind of tension started to really collide? And you're just like, you notice even more, just like, oh, this is not me. This needs to get out.
Yeah, I mean, quite honestly, I feel like you know, like somewhere probably after this, I'll send you a lot of the songs from back then. But it's like I truly believe that God knew where I was at and where I was going to be. But I had to, you know, like, you know, if you want to pray for rain, you have to be willing to deal with the mud, you know. And for me, I was praying for rain, and I knew that it was going to rain. But at the same time, like I did still have to traverse through some of the mud. And I think I continued to get ahead of myself. But why I say that is because at that time with voices and a lot of those tracks, I think God was allowing me to make those while still in a third dimensional mindset, but knowing that I would be able to not only look back on them and use them as fuel whenever need be, but also like, you know, that was really all kind of a part of the plan, you know, at least his plan, or the plan more so, because at the end of the day, it's like, you know, I had a lot of those you know, those thoughts and those ideas, and a lot of them, you know, came from that. Like that was like my way of the shadow work, like that track, as far as like you know, talking about like the different voices in the head, but also just like kind of, you know, mental health in that way. Like I think for me, God was like, you know, this is what you're supposed to do, which is channel in this way. And like, that was one where I was like, oh yeah, like I got to get this off me, you know. And God was like, you'll get these chains off now, but you won't feel this way until much later, you know. So like a lot of those, like I was like, oh, I destroyed emotion. At that time I hadn't even done that yet. Or like I was like, oh, this happened, you know. I knew it was going to happen, but you know, God was really setting me up with that alley-oop. I just hadn't slam dunked it, you know, yet. But,
Yeah. Well, the dust had to settle, and I think that's the coolest thing,
Right.
is you can really see the difference between the Slumflower series and the Equinox EP. That's, to me, it was just like, whoa, that's like, that was the shift where I was just like, okay, he changed gears.
I appreciate that. Totally appreciate that. Yeah, Equinox was funny because, you know, it was all of the music is organically made in a way where like those were all like Equinox, those three were already put together and they were just kind of just floating around. But I was like, there's a story in here that is very synonymous to how I feel in this moment, which, you know, like the first track, Futures here, I produced that one by myself. So it was a, you know, kind of coming of age for me where I was like, oh, you know, this future is here. Like a lot of what I'm saying as far as like, oh, you know, don't give up, it'll be better. Like, you know, I go back and I'm like, damn, I did say that because that was going to happen. But then like, even from there into Angels and Keep It Positive, like those are really ones where I was like, oh, I actually feel like this. Like I feel like, you know, my worth was not, you know, unseen in these ways by, you know, different third dimensional kind of low vibrational, you know, things that didn't really need to see it or couldn't really see it at that time. Anyway, I just didn't know that. But, you know, and then like even sliding into Keep It Positive was like kind of letting go of a little bit of that kind of like I'm the shit ego, and was like, all right, well, you know, no matter what, we just gonna always keep it positive because this is, you know, kind of how I feel, how I've always felt, you know, like before. And I'm sure maybe you'd resonate with this too. It's like before I was depressed, I was always someone who was, if I truly look back, I've always been like a positive, this spirit kind of youthful character. It wasn't until the world tried to kill me that I was like, oh, like, you know, I feel all sad or whatever the fuck. But like, I really never felt that way, honestly. You know, I was always someone who, if I was being real to myself, like, you know, just how I grew up watching my mom go through a lot of, you know, her struggles and whatnot, you know, and we'll touch on that. But more so to say, like, I've always felt like that. You know what I'm saying? I just had to really shed that skin and just keep it real and keep it positive. So I was like, all right, well, you know, so it's funny how, and I appreciate you saying that. It's funny. There is a switch that is a very organic switch and a very real switch, but it's like, that's like, it's just the beauty of like, God is allowing me that when I truly just be my authentic self, these things really just write themselves in that way, you know, and
they flow. They just allow themselves.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, I'm just very blessed for that. So I appreciate you giving those a listen and whatnot, you know, means more than you know. But yeah, it is truly, God is really like, here, you know, wake up in the morning and just be this black guy and I'll tell you what to do. And, you know, I'm just in there somewhere, you know what I mean? So, you know,
sitting back, watching the film unfold.
Pretty much, you know what I mean? So yeah, man.
That's so dope though, because it's funny how you said it though, is it's kind of like when it was finally manifested in your real life, like in the now, then it was like, okay, now it's time to drop these.
Right. No, literally. And it's very like, it truly is a blessing because there's, you know, those things you can't necessarily plan for and schedule, but they hit at the perfect time when they're supposed to hit, which is, you know, of course, like the most important, because had I, you know, tried to do anything like that maybe a year ago, you know, I'd have just messed the whole thing up. You know, it had just been me just lying throughout the whole song about keeping it positive when that was not how I was feeling, or like it had just been honestly more detrimental than putting it out because it had just been a lot of potent energy in all the wrong places. But yeah, very blessed that, you know, when it was ready, I was like, all right, now you can traverse into this next one here. So I'm very, very blessed that happens like that. You know what I'm saying? I just be trying to just try to keep it real. You know, when I keep it real, that's when God keeps it real with me and is like, yo, put that out tomorrow. I'm like, appreciate you. You know what I mean? So, you know, best A&R, I'll tell you. So,
well, you don't ignore the signs. And I think that's awesome to see is that, I mean, again, it's that recognition and the vision. You have to be wise or developed enough to actually see it and not ignore it and then follow it. And that's a deeper trust and faith though. Like, where did that trust and faith in God and source and the creator, like where did that really stem from?
You know, honestly, like I said, 1,000 thank yous for these questions. They're incredibly insightful and just ridiculously introspective. Totally appreciate it. You are doing a phenomenal, just great guy. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to Peter Lucas, everybody. But yeah, honestly, where they come from. So and I would love to kind of know if maybe you had this experience as well. But for me, I was always someone that, if I look back as far as I can, I was always very spiritual, and I was also raised in a church. I was raised in a Southern Baptist style church. So both my family, my dad's side, they're from East Coast, so like Baltimore area, and then like my mom, she's from like Oklahoma. You know what I mean? So like very Southern Baptist, was raised in that. However, I also knew in that time. I think I was always a free thinker, to be real. And I think I knew that even in the midst of an organized religion, I knew that what it was that I had going on was not something you could really organize, to be honest. It was just very different. You know what I mean? And I think and then that was also coupled with my very nomadic behavior over the years too. So I think those two things, which, Source had put in me way in the beginning, of course, to get to this moment, so those two things always left me as like, someone I would say always looking for the truth or an answer, or a very young philosopher, to be honest. You know what I mean? So like, very, was someone that was like, even all the way up till I was about like 16, 17, I was, tried different churches, Catholicism, Islam, like just really trying to kind of figure something out. And then when I was 17, I was actually what they call an investigator of the Mormon Church. So the Church of Latter-day Saints. I was me and another guy, very similar experience, but me and him, we were pretty much almost Mormon missionaries for, about like a whole year and a half, and it was a very odd experience that, to be honest, I think the church would not allow to this day. But, we really were kicking it with them on a very close relationship, spending time with them. Like, they would take us what they call tracting, which is when they go door to door, you know what I mean? And I had like a PMG, preach my gospel, white dress, like really was in it in a very deep way, which was, I think at that time for me, I enjoyed the mentorship aspect that I was bringing to other people, and kind of this, bring knowledge to the masses feeling, you know what I mean? So like at that time, like very, very like deep in that for about, honestly, probably about like a year and a half, very, and it's funny too, because the same people who brought me into the church actually ended up leaving the church, for their own reasons, of course. But man, I mean, literally from that all the way up to now, you know what I mean? Like, because I've always, this was always in the path. And I think it was always in the path in this way where God was going to make me to be a very curious kind of, I just had to find the answers on the inside. I was looking everywhere except inward, and that was pretty much kind of what brought me here, honestly, because I was like, what is your perspective on God? Or what's your perspective? But I had to just ask this person, and I was like, oh, I see, So
interesting.
Yeah, that's really where, all started. And, it was kind of funny. God will put certain angels along your path that will be like representations from these different either religions or different groups. And he'll do that because you'll truly see yourself reflected in them in a way to understand the complete unity of this consciousness in that way, by really being able to understand like, oh, there really is nothing different from me and, either my Muslim friend here or my friend whose family practices Catholicism here, or, and that God knew I would know what to do with that awareness and that understanding and be able to, really just force it inward. And yeah, man. So that's literally is here we are.
That's interesting. And I think that's something that a lot of people lack, because again, when they choose a certain religion or sect, they kind of stay in that lane forever. Some people do it generationally. They never actually go outside, or they completely dismiss it and neglect everything.
Yeah.
And if you negate it all, then it's, again, you're missing all the lessons that they provide. And I think that's one of the coolest things to hear about, is that you kept the curiosity throughout all of this different religious experience. So, but you kind of briefly said it, like, what was that catalyst? What was that moment when the external search stopped and it became the inner looking?
Oh, well, quite honestly, and it's funny too. So it's like, and God is so good where it's like, you'll be able to see the timestamp in a way that you didn't know was there. But if I look back, I'm like, damn, that's crazy. So ironically enough, basically what happened, and like I said, this, like we're about to dive deep here, which is beautiful, because when I was 17, that's when I was doing pretty much all of, the Mormonism and this, that, and third. And, remember the life path number 7. So like when I was 17, that happened. I was virtually in a place where I don't want to say I was completely living out of ego, but at that point, that's where a lot of that was starting. I could look back now and feel that. Didn't notice then, but now it came in a 7-year cycle for me, which is ironic to the 7-year life number. But basically, at 17 is where a lot of that started. And then at 24 is where, I basically was able to use a 7-year period of just kind of ego, what I thought I knew, who I thought I was, and all of these different things to basically kind of create these different lifestyles, these different, kind of personalities, really whatever you want to call it. But I had 7 years to do that. And in that 7-year span, I thought I was God in that way, I like a God, or that's what my ego had pushed me to believe as in like this, very superior intellect type of, whatever. And that truly lasted 7 years, under a decade. And then I truly believe COVID to give me the time to sit with myself, to then make that switch. And that's essentially what it was. So like, even in that period of 7 years, like, 4 of those years and went by, or maybe 5 of those years went by. So 21, 22. And that's where, like, I would say like an emotional poet essentially was being created. Like, it was always there. I'd never identified it until my like mid 20s in that way, 22, 23, but that was always there. That shadow was always there. That cloud over my head was always there, because I kept it there. I never released it myself. And and I just didn't give it a name. And then, like I say, 24 hit. And basically that's when it all just got real 7 years later, you know what I mean? And it truly is a blessing in that way, because I'm glad that happened, that switch. But that's what it was, externally, was that my biological, or my esoteric clock, I guess you could say, was up. And those 7 years where, I couldn't turn that turn dial anymore. And God was like, all right, time to stop being a phony. And, so.
Well, you just touched on something that's really important, at least the way I see it, in terms of how a lot of people have unfolded into like this kind of like deeper spiritual knowing is, I'm a very big proponent on saying, we're each god and goddesses. We have that divine beingness, that spark of the creator that flows through us. But so many people kind of get caught up by thinking, again, like that they are God themselves. It's just like, no, like we are in the womb of the one, like it's that same essence and energy through everything, but we are our own unique being. We are our own soul, our own spirit that develops. It's like, it's the ultimate father or the ultimate mother, and we're the children. And I think there's a huge humbling factor when you really recognize that it's like, oh, like, the source of all is all and flows through everything, including my beingness. But I have that free will. I have my own things. I have my own choices to do. And just in terms of your life and this kind of switch and that pivot that took, when did you really start to recognize that power, about like that divine power that you had of like manifestation? That's just like, no, this is what I want. Like, this isn't me anymore. This is my truth. Because I mean, you've been making moves, so I'm just very curious. It's like, when did you figure out the manifestation thing?
No, I truly appreciate that. I can't tell you about this moment, man. It's phenomenal. But basically, literally, like, and I don't want to say it all, definitely was not an overnight thing, but definitely was something that was like, it was all kind of happening like this. So basically what had happened, honestly, this kind of craziest part looking back at it. So like, around the time of COVID last year, more so like a year and a half ago, I had God had sent me probably one of the best spiritual counselors of all time to kind of hit my path, at least for me in this existence. And what had happened was ultimately I got to meet someone who is a very similar character in this game as myself. And because of that, that was something that really allowed me to not feel as the Western science would, call you like crazy or whatever. But like, that was something that allowed me to really understand that, like, oh, like I'm not the God, but I am not also, crazy or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I was more so had this person to be like, oh, no, God talks to you similar to me, but, I hear it, you see it, and then I was like, oh, you know what I mean? So that's where I really got the opportunity to expand in this and kind of really just kind of uncover and understand. So then with that came like getting rid of like a lot of the, kind of demons and stuff in my life. And the ones that were, the manifestation came from realizing that I was manifesting negatively. And what that was doing was actually causing these fat rifts in my timelines that were, my fault, of course, but like were, they were there because like, God will give you up to your desires, but at the same time, like, you got to be careful what you wish for, really, in that way. You know what I mean? So, like, I was unfortunately putting out some Timmy Turner wish energy out there that, boy, it was not going to Cosmo and Wanda. You know what I'm saying?
I did not think this one through.
Right. You know, and boy, I just found myself in some positions where I was like, geez, this is my fault. You know, I was like, you know, me looking to the mirror, like, you know, what part of stop spending money do I not understand? You know, but, you know, but no, basically that is, and a bunch of other things, basically kind of led to that demise. Like it was very inevitable. It had to happen, you know, and
Yeah.
really shout out to Source, shout out to who they brought along, which was this character. And that was really what it was. So then when I was learning that I was manifesting negatively, ultimately I learned what I had to do to really pull the chains off me so I could allow my vibration to elevate, to then do that in a more positive way. And you know, so then, you know, like I didn't realize I had been manifesting this whole time for these 20 plus years, except in just such a, you know, angry and frustrated and just really just like, I need it now, impatient, negative energy. That was why my reality in front of me was so awful, at least how I was experiencing it. But you know, like I said, really shout out to Source and this character that came along to not only show me that that was happening, but also show me how to reroute that. And really, you know, I mentioned in that end of Slumflower Series, like, essentially God showed me how to time travel and open these portals and, you know, really kind of do, you know, so that really came at that time as well, you know, and that being something where I was like, wow, we really are, you know, this astral plane, this is a real thing, you know what I mean? So like really spending some time there allowed me to really rewire and, you know what I'm saying? Here we are.
Interesting. So that's something that like I just got to touch on in terms of just the esoteric aspects to life.
Totally.
Is when did a lot of these things in terms of, you know, whether it be astral travel or lucid dreaming or, you know, whatever dream work or dream school things that you've been doing, like when did that really start to come to fruition for you?
Totally. I would say for me, so it's actually funny too, you know, I'll just have to send you the video, but there was a video I made essentially about intro 3:23 a.m. And in that one, that was the first and only and probably the last clip of anything Emotion the Poet based. But the funny thing and beautiful thing about that and how just wonderful Source is that was all created for me in this way that I had to make it like that. And that was kind of my cry for help. Essentially what that was, and why I bring that up is because at that time, when I knew that I was deep in hell, I also knew that that wasn't going to be my, you know, eternal reality. I just knew that I had to face that at that time to essentially get out of it and kind of see, like, is this really what I want, this third dimensional existence, you know? And basically what was happening was that God was speaking to me in a lot of my dreams and a lot of really visualizations and a lot of the astral travel and the numbers and synchronicities. A lot of that was happening during the witching hour for me while still in this place, you know. So like my physical body essentially was just stuck in the 3D. That was just truly stuck in just a very dark and very demonic space, honestly, you know. But what had happened was God was able to still speak to higher self me, which is what kept me going. And that is
that inner guru.
Right. You know, and that is ultimately kind of what kept, that's really kind of what kept not only the hope alive, but also me alive, but also like that was where a lot of the lucid dreaming and the astral travel started to happen as well, because at that time I was also trying to really force an ego death, and then was able to do it by the help of some good old psilocybin, you know what I mean? And that, like, literally just that whole cluster of time was where a lot of that was happening. And I was able to use that to kind of send out messages to higher self me, which was like, you know, kind of beware of false prophecy, or like, you know, different angelic numbers that at that time, I had an understanding of what they were, but I knew at that time that my understanding would grow to be able to reflect on them now, to then understand like how, not only how deep I was in there, but also like how urgent it was I get out of it. And I was using a lot of imagery and symbols that, again, at this time I would more so understand, but I didn't think, like, then I had no clue how, I would say, powerful and impactful those things were at that time, as opposed to now. And it's just kind of crazy how the story is unfolding. So, you know, with the intro 323, and kind of just like in this tangent, but more so to say, like, that is really 323 is actually my birthday, so March 23rd.
Oh wow.
And the reason I put that there, but at the end it's like, oh, you know, he died, but then it's like, oh, we still got something, is because that like I had to die to then the we got something be this kind of spark, that one right when it's flatline, but there's that one doo-doo, you know, that one doo-doo was essentially that flicker of light, which was, oh wait, that there is some oil left in that lantern right there, you know what I mean? And then of course like grew throughout the story, and got to this point. But yeah, so all of that to say, and I apologize, I kind of almost even forgot what the question was. I just started, God is just like, hey, say this part, you know what I'm saying? But ultimately, yeah, man, that is where all of that happened. That 323 is during the witching hour, during when a lot of that insomnia was happening as well, and just high paranormal activity. But yeah, that is when a lot of the outer body traveling was happening for the most part. You know what I'm saying? And that I got very blessed, was very lucky to have that happen then, because it brought me here. But yeah, man, definitely that cluster of time before COVID was very pivotal, because I think God knew what I was going to do with COVID or that time.
So it's kind of just readying. It's almost like a squirt gun, like pumping it, just be like, oh, it's gonna go, it's gonna shoot.
Literally, I'm like, y'all think this is not gonna be nothing, but I'm like, literally.
That's great. Well, it just goes to show in the sense of I've seen it like personally, like these past like probably like 5-ish months, 6 months, just the divine timing of things have just been so much more apparent in terms of when people just kind of like those random stars cross and it's like, oh, okay, now they go this way. And then, and I think that's one of the most beautiful things is life always provides us exactly what we need to awaken to the truth within. And I think a lot of people overlook that. That's one of the coolest things that I've seen about you is really bringing that kind of, conscious awareness to the journey, the development, and just giving people those insights. Because again, it's that community that it's all based on that same aspect where you're not alone. We've never been alone, but that as I see is the role of the ego is like that. It uses separation to separate ourselves, from our truth, from everything. And when we separate from that belief, that thought, that conditioning, it's just like, right. Everything starts to open up, and then life's like, they get it. Okay, next level.
Yeah, and it's weird too, because life will hit you with that, where it's like, you're like still picking up the pieces of your brain that just blew up, and life's like, all right, move to the next one. And I'm like, so literally,
let it go. You're like, what's happening?
No, that's, you know what I mean? But
that's great. Well, speaking of ego depth, though, I see that ego depth's dropping.
Yeah, man.
Video out.
So basically with that, thank you again for that as well too. So like Ego Death video should be coming out. Just got to give Ricardo Esteban shout out to him, but he is going to be finishing that. We shot a little trailer, which was cool because that track was actually very special too, mainly because like Ego Death, but also too like that was kind of the like. I want to say that was, I don't know what the word would be, but essentially not the middle of the track or like the interlude or excuse me, of the album, but more so like where things started to kind of go up a little bit more in the incline of the story. I don't want to say like the climax, but ultimately more so like that was where voices had happened. And at that point, I realized that, because all of those voices in the ad libs of like, oh, you'll never be good enough, those are, and not more so to say, but like those were created from like my childhood, you know what I mean? And those are created from, just inner child feelings. So of course, in the next one to get to that point of like, me and my dad, we talk again, you know what I mean? And ironically enough, even at my family's house right now, I'm at like the house I grew up in right now in Olympia. So like even that, what I'm saying, to go from, voices to then get to that one, very prominent in the album, but also in the story as far as like what had to happen in order to get, even to this part, as far as like really healing and kind of, breaking down these generational barriers and voices and what a lot of those voices represented as far as just, just really hurdles in that way. But then to get to this next one of like, okay, this ego is kind of lifting. It's kind of, shedding the serpent in that way. And yeah, man, you know what I'm saying? So just definitely appreciate you saying that and bringing that up. And yeah, looking forward to getting that video out, because for me, I try to really, I could do kind of like the flashy stuff, but I really just kind of like to keep it very, not movie-esque, but definitely like I look at this life as a movie, or just this kind of, pineal gland, like, projection in that way. That's why the cover art looks like that. And excited to see kind of what gets projected with this one, you know what I mean? And just, see where it goes, honestly. But yeah, man, that's the story behind that one. So
that's dope. So in terms of, just your different skills and talents, like you're singing on those, you're doing the voiceovers, are you making all the art for it too?
Oh man, I wish I could take the credit for that. I mean, I did make the cover art for Equinox, but
There you
my
go.
soul brother Devonte, he made the cover art for the Slumflower series, and
There you go.
was very very blessed that he did that, because it's funny that in there, if you notice, I'm holding a bag of popcorn, which is funny because I did not ask for that, but I bring that up because what my girlfriend had showed me was that in some of our best moments, or just my best moments, or just like the more happier, positive moments, ironically enough, there's always a photo of me holding a bag of popcorn with my right hand, like in that same way. And
That's
it was
great.
funny that he drew that there, because like, again, did not ask for that, but there was something about him that knew to put that like that, which I think
Yeah.
God had spoke to him to kind of almost christen this album in that way. Is like, oh no, this will be a good thing. Like these things that happened here, these stories that live
Yeah.
on, this was a good thing that had to happen in that way. So,
Mm.
like I said, definitely wish I could take the credit, but I think God channeled into his hands and allowed him, really just come up with something that was not only going to live on forever, but also represent such a it's such a beautiful part of my story in my life in that way,
Yeah.
and because that was also his voice on the first track too. That was,
Okay.
hey, we still got something here. You know what I mean? So from
Yeah.
seventh grade, us being best friends in seventh grade, middle school, and both of our moms both having like MS, and just kind of, I just the ironic, ways God put us all together to be able to still, kind of shine our light even in these ways, and, still do it in a collective sense. Just, beautiful,
Yeah.
so he definitely did the artwork on that. I did the one on Equinox, and then I have another project coming up soon that I did the artwork on that one. But I try to leave that up to the experts. I just throw mine on Canva, do the full screen so I can crop the screenshot so I don't pay for it. And here we are. So if Canva sees this, I might be sued, but we are
Flip
here,
it.
right?
But I think the coolest thing, and I really want to just highlight the ability of, when you're actually, like you just spoke on it, but it's how that kind of like higher self speaks through. So it connects people, and it connects these opportunities and these decisions, that those coincidences that just happen to arise.
Really.
How did this opportunity to open up in the Free Thinker tour and like go to New York, how did that play out? Because I feel like that was a straight
Thank
like
you.
manifested moment where it's just like, oh yeah, let's do it. Like,
No, truly, and definitely with that, thank you so much for bringing that up. Shout out to Ethan at Verse of the Band. Shout out to Zoe Brisky, and she's a synth pop legend in New York. But ultimately, like how that all happened was the Slumflower series. So they is in Verse of the Band. So he had heard the album. I think, honestly, I'm not really sure how, but I mean, he had just heard it, and we had got connected via Instagram, and then the internet did what it's supposed to do. And then basically what had happened was he was like, hey, we've been listening to this super dope project, really like it. And then I got connected with them, and God essentially showed me essentially another very similar character in this game, which is him, and what it is that he does for his people over there, his collective versus the band and their group and whatnot. And yeah, basically, we had always just kept communication. I always just tried to show love, and he would also show love. And I think, you would also resonate with this too. Is a very distinct power with just showing love. It doesn't cost anybody anything, but it is truly a
100%.
very distinct, people won't remember what you say or do, but they remember how you make them feel, and that was, I think, something that he had, put into me, and vice versa. So ultimately, there, I don't even know what had happened. He just had posted that they would be doing some shows in California and the West Coast, and I was just really shooting a shot in the universe, and was like, hey, I have experience with curating and doing bookings, and bringing artists together. So if you want to meet maybe in Portland, we can do a show there, and then I can throw something in Seattle, and ultimately make it worth their while to come out this way. And then he was like, if you want to come to the East Coast, you can join in on these shows here, and we could just put something together, and of course, like this is months, so like that all was in was that June, August? Yeah, so that was all we figured that out like early, I want to say like March, and then like I just tried to stay in contact, and of course, like working with other creative folks, it's like you got a project going on, they got something going on, time difference, 3 hours, whatever. So like there were times where I was like, is this gonna work out? You know what I'm saying? But then of course, like God came through, and it worked out perfectly, and basically literally, we just pulled the trigger on some tickets and were able to get back in contact with them, and came out there for the perfect amount of time. We're able to make just some wonderful connections. And most beautiful thing about that, how I know Source is real, is that there was a artist out there. I've been following him on Instagram for about 2 years and never saw this person in real life, didn't know anything about them, truly loved their content. Out of nowhere, they were also in the same room with us in New York.
Oh, wow.
Most random room I could have been in at a random time in a random place on the East Coast. They just kept saying his name, and they were, Banco, Banco, Banco. And I was like, Source was like, go ahead and do it. And I was, hey, is this your Instagram? And he was like, yeah, that's me. And I was like, bro, I've been following you for years, because he was connected to them. So 6 degrees of separation, going crazy. And in his bio, he had a 888 and a 444. So, of course, I had to pull out the tattoo, what I mean? And, but I say that because that was where I was supposed to be, and that was something that, following the signs, listening to Source, it put me exactly where I needed to be, around the people I needed to be, to then not only cultivate in that present moment some future moments that would be incredibly positive and impactful, but also even allowed me to look back at all of the past moments or the past thoughts that had built me up to that moment to even be there, you know what I'm saying, and be around everybody who was also at a 444 moment in their life of transformation or elevation, doing what they needed to do, you know what I mean? So truly just remarkable group of people. Shout out to Versus the Band and Zoe Brisky. And like I said, just the love that was shown from them to me, and of course, from me to them. I mean, it was just all cosmic and organic, you know what I'm saying? And they definitely look forward to, getting them over here at some point. And, I don't know if you've got a chance to check out that Free Thinker album, but definitely a similar vibe, and it's good to see that Source will show you like, okay, you're doing this here, they're doing a similar thing here. So, it's just that stone in the water, that ripple effect that, is, it's slow, but it's making its way, you know what I'm saying? So definitely. Yeah, but that's how that all happened, man.
That's dope. And that's just one of those coincidences that people just, they ignore the divine timing of things, where when you really embrace the flow and you're just, I think the biggest thing about it is when you overcome the fear and use your courage just to do it, just to act. Like, how many times will the universe actually tell you no?
Right.
Very rarely. And even when it is a no, it's most likely a blessing in disguise, if not one of those things where it's, you just weren't ready yet, didn't want you to mess it up.
Right. No, honestly, man, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, it truly was one of those, like, I think Source will test you, and I think the world will also test you, but I feel like it was my opportunity to show that I had studied, you know what I mean? Ooh, and that was pretty much, I think, that was kind of the reward of that studying in that way, you know what I mean?
Ooh. So in terms of the learning of the lessons from said experiences and work, you did your homework, so to speak. Mm-hmm. I guess the question that I have for you is, in terms of this, you briefly mentioned it in terms of like the using consciousness expanders, plant medicine or fungal medicine, psilocybin. How did that experience really, I know you mentioned like the ego death aspect, but what Brian entered it and what Brian came out?
Wow. Yeah. I think the Brian that had entered was a very fear-based, just very frustrated, concerned, a very, I'd say like a very, like maybe like a 5-year-old Brian had went into that, like almost kind of like in the movies, if you're familiar with the Little Rascals, where they try to go in and get that bank loan, and, he's like, pulls the beard down and sees that they're just, full of crap, and they're just, 2 scared kids trying to make something happen. That essentially is who entered in that portal, and who came out was the next bearded gentleman that came up to the desk that was actually an adult. And, that was pretty much how that had worked for me, because, I mean, like, I would never say that you ever lose that aspect of your, being a youth, a child or whatnot, but more so, I think what I learned and what it came out of that was a Brian that learned how to be more fluid with that, and be more essentially, like, for me, I think I've always been, like, the Brian that had entered in was always here, but at the same time, it was very much so suppressed under just so much just, layers of just, this pain, that, or, childhood, that, you know what I'm saying? And I was able to clear that to a way where ultimately, like, I have a lyric in one of my upcoming songs, and basically I say, like, I tell the voices in my head, remember that I'm in charge. And like, basically that's kind of what had happened, was that I came out and I was like, y'all can stay, but y'all work for me now. You know what I mean? And
assert your true position.
Exactly. So I took the light back and I was like, this is the main altar, you know what I mean? And y'all will follow under this. But they're still in there. You know what I mean? I still get crazy with the SpongeBob ice cream pop that doesn't look like what it's supposed to. You know what I'm saying? And, 8-year-old Brian still rolls out. But, I'm driving a boat now.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to phrase it. And I think that's just the concept that a lot of people have. That is, again, I almost see it as like the spiritual materialism, or even like a little bit of that, like the ego hijacking the spiritual truth in a lot of ways, is that, people think that somehow everything just goes away. And it's like, but fundamentally ignore that every aspect of your experience is you. Like, you're building upon every aspect of that slice of now. And if you ignore any of it, you're ignoring a piece of yourself.
Yeah, no, honestly. And I think that for me was like one of the biggest things. And I think that's what was holding me back from getting to that, not final level, but essentially getting to that boss level where the boss was myself. And I think, I was holding myself back from that because of that fear and because of that, oh, what are other people going to think, or what, and really not even worried about like what's going to happen to me or what am I going to feel, but literally was just so fearful of just, what if they find out this is not who I really am? When in reality, I was like, this is really never who you've ever been. So, I'm like, what I'm saying? I'm like, you need to find that, you know what I mean? But, a lot of those uncomfortable, sitting with yourself and just those uncomfortable, hard pills to swallow. But, they have to be swallowed, you know what I'm saying? Because if they're not, they just sit there, So,
and it just begins to fester, and then it's just like anything else. You invest the energy in it, it starts to grow, and then it gets stronger, and then it's just like, oh gosh, it's back again.
Right. I'm like, damn, I thought I outran this, and it's like, well, I caught up, and I'm like, shit, yeah.
I caught up.
Yeah.
Speaking of new music, though, I'm so curious. Like, what are the next works? Like, what's the future hold?
Man,
if you said the future is here, okay, we're here now. What's going down?
Man, I'll tell you. So, I have some that are just hot off the press, and just ready to come into the world essentially. But basically, I have a single that I'm gonna put out with Drew the Alchemist. He's the producer from Voices, but also he's also in-house at Emotion Entertainment. We all grew up pretty much kind of in this area, which is Olympia. So with the house that I'm in, he was one street away at the bottom on the corner. Then another producer on the team was also one street away, but in the middle. And then what I'm saying? We all literally from middle school to high school to community college, literally all grew up as bros, you know what I mean? So shout out to my man, Drew the Alchemist. And we have a single that's going to drop that is probably one of my more controversial ones, at least for the third dimensional public. But I would say, me really stepping into, this is just me unapologetically being who I am as a free thinker and just a free-minded person, but also someone who's, very radical, have always had these thoughts, and we plan to put that single out to announce a sophomore album that's going to follow the Slumflower Series that is in the works. But also in between that, I'm going to be dropping a little 4-track EP called Insomnia that's going to come out here probably within the next month or so. And that is a complete vibe switch to Equinox, but is also a perfect kind of prelude to this sophomore album. So Insomnia, the 4-track, will, touch on a lot of that witching hour kind of feeling, a lot of those kind of lucid dreams, a lot of those kind of where I would go on the astral plane. Essentially, Insomnia is going to talk on a lot of that, and then that is going to lead into this sophomore album that we'll probably see somewhere, I want to say, if not before the winter, that late fall. But so those two, technically three, but those 2/3 are on the way. But we have this one coming soon. It's called The Revolution is Coming, and I'll have to send it to you after this and just get your thoughts. But yeah, man, that's gonna drop, and very excited to, like I said, just get more authentic and get more just real. We're here, we are here. We've always been here to stay. And these are what our thoughts sound like, essentially. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, man, gonna put that out very soon. But that's what we got. And the sophomore album from Drew and I, very excited for that, because that is just he and I, he is the main producer. I'm just the main vocalist, but touching on a lot of, I think the Slumflower Series was a very not vague, but it was a just very kind of spiritual awakening. I call it the soul, essentially. That would have been that part. This is Incarnate is going to be the mind, and that is going to really touch on a lot of the kind of the darker half of a spiritual awakening that I think I don't want to say it's not popular to talk about, but it's just the more taboo aspects, the kind of schizoactives or the dissociative identity disorders, the disassociations, the kind of neglect from, family in that way that can't necessarily understand what you're going through. All of those kind of more taboo aspects we'll see in Incarnate, again, more late fall, but yeah, that's kind of the vibe I'm getting into, because I think for me, and maybe yourself, maybe you resonate with this as well, it's like spiritual awakening for you is kind of like, it happens, it moves, it's very fluid, but for others, they can only understand it and comprehend it from their level of understanding comprehension. So this is still me, tossing the rope back in that way and saying, hey, this is where I'm at, but grab onto this rope if you were also feeling these ways, and kind of come up, you know what I'm saying? So that's what we can definitely expect that between Insomnia sometime in September, and then this sophomore album late fall as well. But yeah, that's what we're looking at, just trying to keep it more and more real, and just see how authentic we can get, honestly.
And I will say this, we're in that era of truth, and more people are waking up to it now. And, kind of in this time that we're in, this beautiful opportunity of transformation, what would be something that, you would really kind of like to tell your younger self, or tell someone who's going through like that point of the ground's been ripped under their feet? They have no idea like who they are, what's going on. They don't know what truth is. Because again, I think that's where the ego tries to hijack a lot of that fear and uncertainty to transform into something that's just like takes away the beauty of the transformation. It's like, so what was some things that you would tell yourself, or those who are also, going through that right now?
If I could leave somebody with two of them, I would say one is you grow through what you go through. Very large believer in that, but more so to say, because if you get stuck in it, you'll never get through it. But if you continue to go through it, continue to feel through it, you will grow through those, because that'll be your only thing that you can do. Your default at that point is just, you're already getting shit on, so you might as well keep going, and then from that, you'll be like, wow, I grew. And then the other thing is, I always had this kind of metaphor simile of like, like a rocket ship, essentially going through the atmosphere. So like the reason of that is like, as a rocket ship continues to ascend, more and more pieces of it fall off, first, boosters and the thrusters and these pieces that are too heavy for it to keep it, ascending, but also they weren't designed to go where that rocket ship was going to ultimately go. They were there to help and aid the ascension, but they were not designed to get to the destination, and for anybody who has ever felt like that, to look at yourself in a similar way, because a lot of those things that are falling off are, generational demons, generational trauma, who you thought that you were, but they were designed as a part of your soul contract to be here. They were designed as a part of this journey, because they were going to get you there, but they were not going to, they were going to help you get there, but they weren't going to be what fully gets you there, and then you see that very small piece of the rocket that gets there, and you're like, wow, that is teeny, but that's all you ever needed. You know what I'm saying? That is the spirit. That's however you want to look at that, but that's all that you ever needed, and that's, if I could leave that with anybody, I wish myself I had a better understanding of what that meant years ago, but to anyone in that now, not only will it get better, it'll get better when you are able to comprehend that, and then able to apply that to your reality, to then change your reality and transcend into the one that you deserve to have. You know what I mean?
Yes, I love that. I love that. You're meant to let go. You're meant to ascend. It's part of the process.
Literally.
That was so beautiful. And Brian, I just want you to stick around for the after show. And for our
Please.
listeners, you're going to have to tune in Monday to catch the rest of this amazing interview. Roll the outro.
That concludes this episode of Creatives Chat. Thank you for watching. Join us every Thursday at 3:33 p.m. Pacific Daily Time as creative minds get together and chat about who knows what. View more episodes on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks again to our sponsors for making this show possible. Thank you, We Are Historically, for your conscious human apparel. Shop online at wearehistorically.com.
Hi, I'm Darius Wilrich. I'll teach you everything you need to know about playing jazz piano like a pro with my 12-week online video course and downloadable guidebook, Jazz Piano Pro Essentials. Enroll today at jazzpianopro.com.
Thank you for joining us. Have
have a happy always.
So this is one other kind of question. So the 4 represents an A, right? So your name is actually Brian.
Yeah.
Brian.
Pretty much, because
Brian.
I don't know how, but my mom knew that I was going to be the GOAT. You know what I'm saying? So she, had to toss that Brian in there. But,
But this is what I was going to leave you with was 444. Definition. Your dreams, ideas, and visions are manifesting into reality. You are doing the important work right now of building the strong, sturdy foundations for the visions and dreams that will become the reality of future generations. Work hard, be considerate, and know that your efforts are being supported by spirit. It is necessary to ground yourself. Do not underestimate the power of being present in your body on the physical plane of Earth, because you are doing vital work in the here and now.
wow. Sheesh. Thank you for reading that. Ooh, man. Yeah, no, that is powerful. I appreciate. I appreciate.
That's powerful. That's you. I just described you.
That's what I'm like. That is just beautiful, because like I don't know what it is. Yeah, I never knew what it was about the 4 or whatnot, but yeah, like I said, it just always found its way to me in that way. So I appreciate you reading that, because it's because normally like I'm on the opposite side saying that to somebody else. So I'm like, oh hey, if you see these numbers, this is what they mean for you. But
right.
Then hearing that, and then especially from someone like you, Rusty, I appreciate that. Like I feel your spirit when you speak. So I appreciate you saying what you're saying. You know what I'm saying? And this whole meeting, like I can't tell you what it means, but it's definitely somewhere I'm glad, I'm just glad the journey never stopped. You know what I'm saying? It was a blessing to have met you last week, and it kind of, resonate with the poetry and the spoken word aspect. Peter, it's a blessing to have met you and through spiritual lives, and then meet you in real life, you know what I mean? And then, it truly, like, I don't have the words for it, which is funny being a poet, but I'm very grateful just for, us to our paths to, cross, and everything that's going to come out of that, you know what I'm saying? So I'm just very, very grateful. Like this has been amazing. You know what I'm saying? Normally I don't always get to have these kind of conversations where I get to truly exist authentically in them. But, as I felt, being able to just unapologetically be around other like-minded individuals who are also on that same path, it truly is something special, So I just really want to acknowledge it and just thank you guys.
And subscribe to be notified of future episodes.
It's like, it's meant to be. The time is now. Let's do it. So